Hi there, this is Alvin, and welcome to the Kickstart Commerce podcast, where we share search marketing and domain investing strategies to help grow your business. In today's episode, our guest is web designer turned domain investor, Leanne McMahon. Today, Leanne and I discuss finding a place under the sun and how she's making a name for herself in the domain industry, sifting through domain sales data. Next, Leanne and I chat about how web design, search marketing, and customer service roles intersected with her first attempt to flip domain names via Flippa. We then peek into Leanne's Outbound toolbox to discuss MailShake and how she's used it to dial in and perfect her sales through rate, outbounding hand registration domains. And last but not least, Leanne also reveals and discusses a list of 4,000 plus available one-word dictionary.com domains with GoDaddy estimated value in tow. And so with that, Leanne, welcome and thank you for making time to join us today.
Hi, Alvin. How are you?
I'm doing well. So glad to have you on the show.
Yeah, pleased to be here. I've listened to maybe about 20 episodes since I've started domaining, so I'm slowly working my way through your back catalogue, but there's quite a few, so it's taking some time.
That is awesome. Well, then for those that don't know you, that don't follow you on Twitter, why don't you just give a brief overview at a high level, just a bit about who you are, maybe a personal, professional background, just high level summary.
Sure. So I'm quite new to domaining. I've only been dabbling for about a year and maybe only quite seriously for about 6 months. Before that, I worked in a complaints department for a retailer over here called Argos. They have a home delivery branch. So if someone got a wardrobe delivered that didn't have a handle, they were straight on the phone to me. It was the worst day of their life, and I would try and sort it all out for them. So I did that for a few years and sort of built a bit of a web design business on the side because I've always known that I wanted to work for myself, and I've always dabbled in little things, and all of those things have needed a website. So I learned a bit of web design through that, built that up, and then when I got fed up with people shouting at me all day, I thought I'd just take the leap and go full-time with the web design. So I've been doing that for a few years now, but I'm really drawn to the domaining side of things, and I really want to go full-time with that within the next year or two. So at the moment, I'm just building a portfolio. Anything I sell, I'm reinvesting it, continually learning. That's what's so great about Twitter as well, the community over there. And then I'm just posting on Twitter with what I'm learning as I go, things I'm finding useful that other people might find useful, and just sort of taking people on my journey. So for people like yourself, it's a lot of the stuff I post is probably old news in terms of the things I'm trying out, but I think they're quite useful to newer domainers. So just trying to keep myself motivated and keep people sort of on the journey with me so they can learn as well.
That is great. And one of the things that I find intriguing just about your journey, I mean, even in that, summary that you gave, is how you've managed, to jump from, that customer service into, I guess you'd say, web and search marketing, now into domain investing. And so I guess now growing up, did you always, have a lean towards tech or towards web, or I guess what type of background do you come from?
Yeah, towards tech. Like my family were quite techie in themselves. I've got an older brother and he's quite techie, and my dad's quite techie. So I grew up around computers. So I always found that quite easy. At school, when other people would get stuck on things, I kind of already knew how to do it just from playing around with things at home. So yeah, but I was one of those people, I never really knew kind of what I wanted to do. So would drift in from things, and yeah, I didn't really know. Well, do you know what? I didn't know what I wanted to do until I found domaining. Let's say that.
That is awesome.
Now it's clicked, and I'm thinking, okay, yeah, this is the path. But honestly, I've never enjoyed a work type thing as much as I enjoy domains. So I'm completely set on making it a full-time job.
Now, you're also, I guess, somewhat of a stats fan, so you love working with numbers.
I do, yeah. Just seeing how, so I was just browsing down one day and I saw in their footer they had a transaction ledger, which I didn't know what that meant. So I clicked through and it was just a list of the last sort of 5 or 6 sales on there. And I thought, okay, that's interesting. And then I'd sort of refresh it throughout the day, and there was new domains being added. And I thought, okay, these are the kind of domains that are being sold. And it just got me thinking really of, why these domains? Because as when you see any domain list, you think, why did that sell? Who's interested in this? So I thought, okay, how old are these domains? What's the character count? What's the search volume on them? And through doing that, I saw a few interesting things. And being new to Twitter, I didn't, at that point especially, didn't feel like I had much to contribute. And I thought, well, I'll put that on, see if anyone finds it interesting. And I think in that first tweet, I did actually say, if this isn't interesting, tell me, because it took quite a bit of work to do and I find it interesting, but, stop me now if this is old news, because this could have been documented for years, I don't know. So I put it on and other people were like, oh yeah, this is pretty cool. That's interesting. And it just sort of gained some traction. So yeah, I do like stats. I like what they show you, because a list of things doesn't show you anything. And then sort of drilling down into the details, it's very revealing.
Well, and it wasn't just any old body that was looking at these stats. I mean, you had some of the top people that I saw were commenting on it, or saying thank you. They thought the stats were interesting as well. I believe Braden Pollock, he commented at one point. I saw Mark Levine, Logan Flatt, and just some of the top industry professionals that have been doing this, at least for a decade or so. So the fact that here it is, a newcomer stepped in, took this data, begin to sift through it, and then try to make correlations where there could be correlations made, and then the other is just letting the data be the data and just put it out there to see what happens. And so, like I said, I think you found not only your place in terms of the domain industry, or rather a niche into, but I think it definitely uncovered a lot of things that are just sometimes left to chance or left to wonder in regards to why certain domains sell. Because I think through your stats, I was looking through and I was just amazed at how many of the domains that you had reported on were oftentimes less than like 5 days old, meaning that someone went out.
Old.
Yeah, exactly. Somebody would go out, register this domain, and then flip it for anywhere, sometimes I guess for like a 3-figure value, or 4-figure value in some cases. And that's just, you would hear something like that and you say, man, that can't be possible. I mean, everybody else is saying their whole times or 2 and 3 years, like, how is this happening? But hey, it was. So and we have the stats to prove it.
Yeah, and for people like me who are interested in outbounding for, getting those sort of 3-figure sales to reinvest in a portfolio, that really spurred me on, because you could see, it could have been the same person every time, I don't know, but you could just see that it was possible, because people were hand registering a domain and 2 days later it was on the transaction ledger. So that, if anything was going to show you that it's possible to flip domains like that, that showed it. So that's one of the biggest takeaways from me that I got from those Dan stats, was that outbounding hand registrations is feasible.
Now, before Dan came along, or Dan's stats came along on your radar, like, how did you actually get into domain investing? How did you stumble upon this little rabbit hole?
It's just through looking for a way to sidestep from the web design. So I've kind of run my course with the web design that I do. I don't enjoy it like I used to, and I don't know if I ever was in love with it. I just knew it could get me out of my day job, and it certainly did that, and I'll be grateful for that forever. But I'd say maybe for the past couple of years, I've been thinking, okay, how can I sidestep from this and do something else? And a few things floated around, and then kind of domains, and I'd forgotten. It was only so I opened a Flippa account when I started all this and was doing some stuff on there. And then they contacted me and said, oh, you've actually got another Flippa account from like 10 years ago, so we should merge these together. And I thought, have I? And then I went to check, and it was from when I started web design. I'd had a Flippa account and I was trying to flip a few sites on there, but I'd also sold a couple of domains on there, which I'd completely forgotten about until about 3-4 weeks ago. But back then I didn't have the same mentality. I'd try something, and if it didn't work straight away, I'd go, okay, well, that doesn't work, and I'd move on to something else. So I think that's what I did then. I think I sold a couple, and then maybe I didn't sell a couple more, and I thought, okay, well, this isn't worth my time, and I moved on. So through looking through something else sort of techie to do, and something that's not as customer facing, web design, there's a lot of back and forth, and
right.
that's really time consuming and quite draining sometimes if you've got a particularly awkward customer. So what can I have that's maybe a bit more like a product where you buy it and then you sell it, and there's maybe a little bit of admin in terms of transferring the domain name if it's not a fast transfer, but I fancied the idea of something a bit more productized. So yeah, started leaning back towards investigating domains, and I bought one on the closeout. It was christmaswrapped.com, and wrapped as in wrapping a gift. And I listed it on Afternic for, I think it was $297, and it sold within 12 hours. So then I was like, oh, okay, well, yeah, this is this is worth investigating again. So yeah, that just got me down the rabbit hole then of like, okay, let's see if there's any domainers on Twitter, and let's start seeing if there's any forums, and I'm really digging into it. So that was only about a year ago that happened. So, but yeah, from then I thought, okay, yeah, I need to find a way to make this work. And seeing people do it on Twitter full time and things, I thought, okay, yeah, let's go for it.
Now, I think I ran across your profile somehow or another, and the only thing that keeps coming to mind is that it was like, I think you were dabbling in the land of like search marketing or domains that had SEO, some sort of SEO value.
Exactly, yeah. That was my first foray into domains. I had quite a few quite strong SEO domains that I'd used you could just 301 redirect them, and it would pass on quite a bit of link juice and pass on a lot of links. So I thought, okay, well, I'm not going to use those for the project I was using them for at the time. So I'll try and sell them. And I did sell a couple of those, but it's some you had to build out a bit to then get someone to buy it off you for a few hundred. And they're quite hard to sell because they're not always the ones with loads of juice, aren't necessarily the ones that are like the prettiest sounding domains either. So that was tricky, and they didn't have enough juice to be that people would buy it regardless. So I was kind of hovering around a middle ground there. So then I've started experimenting with a few other things. I do have a couple of domains on Domain Juice. Is it Domain Juice? No, Market Juice Market. I can't remember what it's called, but people will know. Listen, they'll be shouting it at the phones. I do have a couple of domains on there. Yeah, I do. If I see one, I get one. But at the moment, I'm looking for something that I can do predictably and sustainably for me to step away from web design even more, and to give me money to reinvest in my portfolio so that I can step away full time. So at the moment, I'm all about how can I make a few thousand a month, and SEO domains I think would take a lot more thought, whereas there's other things I'm doing that seem to be working a bit better. So I'm concentrating on the ones I'm seeing better results from and putting my attention onto those.
Fabulous. And so one of the things, though, that I guess that my mind comes to is you have a web background, you have a fairly decent understanding of domain names. And so I know listeners are probably like, well, why not just begin to develop domain names? You already have the skill and the prowess in terms of delivering a website, so why not couple those two together and try to then flip a domain with the site, or build a domain out, build the SEO juice, and then flip that site? Why not go that path versus just going the path of domain investing?
I mean, I might do that in the future, but at the moment I'm certainly feeling like I'm kind of done with web design, or at least need a break from it. So
she's like web design is looking like customer service.
Yeah, that's just too much like hard work. I can see me doing that in the future, but at the moment I see a couple of my domains where I think, I should build on that, and then I just kind of sit down to do it, and there's no motivation there to do it. It's just not enjoyable for me at the moment. But I think if I had a break from it for X amount of months, then I think I probably would quite enjoy building a site out now. It's just not the immediate future for me, but I can see how that could pay dividends down the line for sure.
She said it's not enough juice in the tank, not enough juice in the squeeze.
No.
Like, nah, you're not going to get me on that question. You're not going to light a fire in me on that question. She's like, Mr. Brown, you got to try something else if you think you're going to get me down that path. No, I get it. Because even from personal experience, I mean, my wife and I, we have something like 16 sites that we've developed, and the revenue comes by way of Commission Junction, the Amazon affiliate program, and then Google AdSense. But I don't do a lot of updating to those sites. I mean, I may take, if I see a site fall off, we may look and add anywhere from 5 to 10 articles to that site, but then it's another 4 to 6 months sometimes in terms of waiting for search engines to pick the content up, to rank the content accordingly, and then finally for that content just to find its resting place, hopefully on page one of Google, and well above the fold. And so that just takes time, energy and effort. And a lot of people are just like, nah, I don't have that sort of time or the patience. And if I did, I might as well go ahead and put it towards one thing, and that one thing being able to look for domains and flip those domains. So I certainly commend you for knowing well in advance that what you have energy for, what you have a desire to do and not do. And so coming back to the Dan stats, like how has working with those stats, because obviously you probably did a bit of domain investing prior to the stats, but then once you started reporting, how did that change you, or I guess you'd say your domain strategy and how you looked at domains that you invested in, or has it?
As I said earlier, it really piqued my interest in the fact that people could register a domain and sell it 2 days later. So it really sent me down the outbound path and what kind of domains you could sell outbound, which leads you to geo domains, which I know you know a lot about. And you did the NamesCon talk about geo domains, didn't you, this year? And that was really enjoyable. So yeah, it sent me more down that path. And I've had a few attempts at geo outbound, and the first one I sold a couple, and then the second time I tried, I sold the first 2 that I did, and I thought, yeah, I've nailed this. And then I didn't sell the next 10. So then I just kind of stopped, and I thought, okay, I need a process, I need systems, I need to really figure all this out. So I took about a month doing that in between my day job, and I thought I figured out quite a good system, and I put it into practice. And so far I've outbounded 10 on my new process, and I've got 3 sales from that, with a 4th one hopefully pending. So I'm just going to run that for another 10, see if I can get the same sort of results. And then if I can, I know that that's, my process is working, and that's kind of predictable to a degree. Not enough that I would then just quit the web design, but enough that I know that would be a few thousand each month to be reinvesting. So yeah, the Dan stats pushed me down that path. I'm on that path until I make it work, because the jump from not really having a portfolio, or having 100 domains, to getting up into the 1,000 domains where you start to really get your passive sales, that's a huge gap. So yeah, to fill that would be really hard for anyone to do from just their day job alone. I think they'd have to eat pasta every day for years. So yeah, hopefully doing the outbound domain will give me the money to fill that gap, and then get really serious about domains and spend more than 2 figures on a domain, that kind of thing.
Now, what inspired you to say outbound? Because most people, likely, especially early domain investors, if you don't come from a sales or a marketing or advertising background, likely is the case, you're going to say, you know what? I'll just stick to my day job. I'll keep registering domains. I'll just post them on Dan or After Nick or wherever. And if I get a sale, I get a sale. Like, that is, you are 180 of that. So like, what inspired you to say, I'm going after this outbound?
I think you learn a lot about domains when you do it anyway, a lot about marketing, but also it's just a way of domains funding domains, and sort of learning through that process. And like I say, not putting all my profits from my web design into domains. It's just filling that gap between not really having a portfolio and having a portfolio. So I guess through doing outbound and flipping domains quickly, the last few that I've done, I think it was 370, 280 and 370. And that was in the space of about 2 weeks. And I wasn't pushing it that hard either. So then that's all money reinvested in, whereas that would maybe be a month's worth of money that I would put in from my day job. So hopefully the outbound just accelerates the end goal of having a more passive portfolio.
Now, were those 3 sales that you mentioned, were those hand registrations, I'm assuming?
Yeah, hand registrations. They were sold within, let me see, I will just have a quick look at my little spreadsheet.
Of course. She's looking at the data.
We've all got a spreadsheet, yeah. It's taking its time to load. But they were all sold within, I think one was sold within 2 days, 3 days. And the others within a couple of weeks, because I had a sort of drip feed campaign with 5 days between each email, and some sold. In fact, they all sold on the last email, on the third one. So I would have been holding it by then about 15 days. So yeah, all sold within a month.
Okay, so in terms of that outbound strategy, so are you using software, or is it all a manual process?
No, I'm using software. So for the last batch I did, I used MailShake. Really like their interface, and they let you do drip campaigns. They clean up your email list. So it's kind of a little bit disheartening, actually, because you'll go to all the trouble of finding the email address, finding the name, trying to get a personalized email address for everyone. And then you put it into a cleanup list, and about a third are wiped out as, these are going to bounce, or these, we can't be sure that's their real address. So
MailShake does that all for you then?
It does, yeah. It's got, what's it called? Voila Norbert is a list cleaning software, and MailShake has some agreement with them that if you have a paid plan with MailShake, you can clean up, X amount of emails. It's quite high. It's something like 1,000 emails a month that you can run through it to clean up. And it gives you 3 categories. So one will be, yeah, this is absolutely fine. This is going to be delivered. Then it gives you sort of an amber version where it says, we can't be sure this is going to go through. I think they call it risky. And then there's another one that says, no, this is not a valid email address. It's going to bounce. And obviously you want to avoid bounces because you want to keep your email address active for as long as you can, because it will get burnt. I'm not doing outbound at the moment because I'm just warming up a couple of new email addresses because my last email got burnt.
Oh, man.
I mean, that's just par for the course with doing outbound, really.
Right.
But I got about 6 weeks out of it. And like I say, 10 domains. So it's quite easy to scale if you have some domains on the back burner that are already warmed up. So it's all part of the learning curve. I'm fine with it. But yeah, MailShake will do that. So what I find is I'll get my leads, and then, a third will be stripped out as not valid. And about a third, as I'm going through the leads, maybe they don't quite fit into the area that I was hoping. So I end up with maybe a third of my initial list that actually that I email.
That's awesome, because I'm looking at MailShake. It's mailshake.com, right?
Yeah, I think so. It's like a blue and pink color scheme.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking at it, and it's I think it says something like $60 a user per month.
That's the one.
And it basically, you have mail accounts from any provider. It offers email personalization, advanced scheduling and throttling, automated email sequences, which you mentioned. And then what's interesting is that it also integrates with Salesforce, Pipedrive, HubSpot, which I'm familiar with all of those. It allows for A/B testing, over 1,000+ integrations with Zapier, which is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Because Zapier what doesn't it integrate with? And so that's interesting, because I hadn't heard of MailShake at all. So that now kind of explains certain things. Because I go, man, if I had to do outbound all by hand, I quit.
Yeah.
I'm stick a fork in him. He's done. I would quit. But now, understanding a little bit about your process of MailShake, and you're loading. Yeah, you have to do the heavy lift of loading these addresses. You probably have to do or rather, I guess the question is, did you do A/B testing in terms of your email templates?
I did, yeah.
Gotcha. And so you did that. And so it's the heavy lift of inputting the contacts, likely, just getting everything set up initially. But once it's set up, it's probably pretty easy to then add a domain, and you already have the template in place.
Exactly,
and you just let it go. Now, for your sequenced email, how many emails are you sending, let's say, to one particular person, or how many emails could be sent?
I do 3. So I think if they're not interested after 3, it's just not. They're just, they're not interested, or they're too busy, or it's just not the time. So the first one is just sort of short and sweet. It just says, got this domain for sale. I'll put the price on as well, because I think if you don't put the price, it's easy for them to make assumptions like, if you got an email saying this domain's for sale, if you're interested, contact me. There's a little bit too much unknown there. And, they're going to want thousands, they're scammers, and they're just going to want to get loads of money off me. So for the first email, I just say, this domain's for sale. It's weird that I register them through GoDaddy just so that I can use that name as well, because that's a familiar name to a lot of non-domain people. So I'll say, this domain's for sale. It's over at GoDaddy. It's $380, $480. I won't go higher than like $480 for any domain, really cold, not geos anyway. So yeah, I'll say that, and I say, if you're interested, drop me a line. And then the second email, I follow up. I don't mention the domain sale specifically. I just, because it's easy to follow up and say, oh, did you read my last email? Did you get this? I find it a little bit desperate. So what I put is I just say, I send them an article. I think it's a LinkedIn article to why geo domains are important for businesses. So my follow-up email is just like, oh, hey, I saw this article, thought you might find it useful. And it's just a way of, bringing you back up to the top of their inbox, reminding them that you're there, but also just being useful and sharing something good with them. And then the last email, I just put a bit of urgency on it, and I say, okay, I'm sending this domain to auction next week. If you want it, you can have it for, and I'll knock a bit off the original price. And I'll say, I'm going to start so say it's a 380 domain that I'm trying to sell. On the third email, I'll say to them, okay, I'm going to send this to auction next week. The starting price is going to be 280. So if you want it for that, to save me the admin of the auction, you can have it. And my last 3 sales all came from that, of them saying, yeah, I'll have it for 280 or whatever I discounted it to.
Wow,
yeah.
you got a system that you're basically working and fine tuning. And so, like, how much time do you spend in terms of, I guess, researching domains juxtaposed to researching the target audience for which that domain may be a good fit for?
Not too much, because again, there's software and things that can do it for you. So I'll compile a list of services, a list of cities. I mean, it's that classic old geo thing. And then you combine them, put the .com on the end and check what's available. And then I just see one that will maybe pique my interest. And then I'll go and check the search volume on it. There was an iteration of my campaign where I would mention search volume, but it didn't seem to matter. They either thought it was a good domain for them or not. They didn't seem bothered with that. But I'll check it just out of interest, because when you're negotiating, it's a good thing to throw out there, and also just showing, the interest in that service. And that will, if there's no interest in a service, there's probably not that many services in that city doing that anyway. So I'll just find one that piques my interest, and then I'll go and check the search volume and go and see how many businesses are around doing that. And when I see one I've got a process, it's all documented somewhere. I think if I can find 100 leads for the domain, because I know full well that maybe 30 of them aren't going to be the leads I thought they were. So say it's a health spa domain, and I'll maybe think I've got 100 leads, but then a third of them, maybe one's going to be like a chiropractor, or something that's in a similar sort of vein. I mean, no, chiropractor's not close to spa, but you know what I mean.
Right.
So a third will be lost from not actually being super targeted, and then a third will get lost when I verify the email. So I think if I can have a campaign to at least 40 people, it has a good chance of success. So yeah, they're my benchmarks of fine. The main one is that it's a domain I like, and secondly that I can get at least 100 initial leads for it.
Interesting. And I guess the thing that I find most intriguing about your process is that even though we both dabble, I guess you'd say, or rather invest in geo service domains, right? So I look at you, and you're on one end of the spectrum while I'm on another end of the spectrum, or just doing things different, but yet it works, is that you're doing outbound, you're finding these names, you're registering these names, you're selling these names, mostly likely in a 30-day or less window, for probably a fraction of what I'm doing, which is I'm not doing outbound. Mm-hmm. All of my stuff is either inbound inquiries or buy it now, whether that be they pay for it all up front, or they do an installment plan. And so one of my recent sales was Conroe Bell's Bond or bellbonds.com. Yeah. And what it is just an interesting thing. It's on a payment plan through Dan, but the domain was listed for $39.95.
Okay.
And they're going to pay for it, hopefully, across this 5-year period or 4-year period. And it's just interesting to juxtapose these two things of one doing outbound, the other not doing outbound, yet you look at the longer time period and it's like, well, which one is right? You could probably say both but you just really have to say, well, what am I willing to do or put in terms of the effort, and does it make sense, in terms of what you're getting out of it? And I would say to both of those, I'm like, yeah, because if you could sell geos for, $39.95, or
Mm-hmm.
in most of mine are falling in the area of $1,400 to $1,500. But
Okay.
again, they're on installment plans.
Right.
They're going to be paid out over 12-month period, 24-month periods.
And how
Versus,
old are these domains?
yeah, and most of those, I'm going to hold those anywhere from 2-3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's 2 to 3 renewals, whereas yours, you're not probably, I guess, I mean, don't necessarily want to put words in your mouth, but you're probably not as concerned about the renewals or the period of renewal, unlike myself, to where I just know, hey, you're probably going to be in this thing at least 3 years at minimum.
No, when I register a domain, I've got no plans of renewing it. But when I don't sell one, so let's say at the moment, and obviously it's early days for my new method, but so at the moment, let's say I'm selling 3 or 4 out of 10. But the ones that I don't sell, I don't see them as discarded and thrown by the wayside. I see them as, okay, well, now they're going to my portfolio, and we'll see if I get an inbound on them. So, but I think the two different approaches, it's also dependent on, I really want to build my portfolio quickly. So I'm going to do these outbound and I'm going to put that work in to get the money to reinvest. Whereas you've got your fingers in lots of different pies, and that urgency isn't there for you. So you're happy to buy them and sit on them. Whereas I could do that, but then, my portfolio is very small, so I probably wouldn't see a return on that for a while. So I think for the position I'm in, with it being early days, I need to put that work in and flip them to grow my portfolio size to your size, for example.
Yeah. And it also, it makes me wonder if we are even investing in some of the same industries, because there are certain industries that are likely going to move faster than others.
Mm-hmm.
And so like, I don't, it's like, I won't mess with any, I guess you'd say, low margin service industries.
Okay.
And a lot of people I've heard have found, success. They're like, oh yeah, I purchased that for, $10 to $15, and I flipped it, for $250.
Well, let me see. I'll just open in MailShake. I'm just going to see the industries of the ones that I sold. So one was solar panels. One was a co-working space. One was a cosmetic surgeon. And the one that's pending is a dietitian. A couple of health ones there.
Right.
Co-working, I think, is really good, especially lots of companies are giving up their offices because they've realized with the pandemic they don't need all that space. So I could see co-working being a bit of a middle ground for lots of people. So that's quite a nice area. And solar panels are solar panels, that's
right.
That's quite a good one.
Well, that's very a high margin business
Mm-hmm.
to a certain extent. And so, it makes me think about, there are certain industries like electrician, roofing, plumbing, remodeling, like those that I know, okay, hey, I'll probably have to dip below that $1,400 mark. It's like I'm gonna have to bring it down probably anywhere. I mean, probably about 500 is probably going to be tops in some cases, depending upon the market too, because you could get into something like, I'm trying to even think of a place like Onion Creek, Missouri. I don't even know if that exists, but the simple fact, like you would say, Onion Creek roofers. Okay, well, Onion Creek roofers versus Austin roofers. Well, I know that Austin there are 14 cities, or rather, 14 cities, which equivalent to 14 states with the name Austin as a city. So to me, I look and I say, well, I'm not going to go invest in that Onion Creek. I'm going to go invest in Austin, because that's 14 different opportunities, markets, likely hundreds, if not thousands of opportunities, versus the Onion Creek. It's like, oh, well, you might only have about 10 10 opportunities, and out of the 10, maybe only about 3 or 4 of those are going to be real opportunities.
And I find those kind of industries as well, it's all word of mouth and refer, it's all that kind of thing. They're not as bothered about websites. They don't need it as much. It's not as cutthroat. It's people will just recommend them. So it's a harder sell as well.
And oftentimes what I find is that they will quickly and readily use like a Google business listing or Facebook listing or
Yeah.
Yelp listing, Angie's List or whatever. They would rather use that, even though that's not, they don't own that platform and they could
Hmm.
get kicked off that platform. It's like, yeah, we don't care. It's done good. And it's the ease of use and not really having to understand a domain or manage a domain. And so it's a kind of a bit of laziness there until you kind of you get bit by the bug
Hmm.
essentially and either get kicked off one of those platforms, and then that's when you figure out like, oh shoot, I should have had my own digital presence.
Yeah.
But it they're just a bit more, you're gonna have to be more hands-on in terms of the sell. But I think I like what you're doing in terms of using, you're using systems and automation to actually do outbound, which is something that I've just not even invested the time to do, just because I understand, one, it just takes a lot to get set up. But like you said, once you set it up, once you find your process, like
Exactly.
it just flows.
It does, because there's a lot of setup as well in setting up the email address. So when I first did my first batch of outbound, I don't think I wasn't it was I know I used Snovio, but I didn't warm up the address. I didn't have all the DNS records like DKMI, SPF, DMARC.
Oh
I didn't
wow.
have any of those in, and they're all things that indicate to the recipient server that this is a good email, this isn't spam. So getting all that set up is work, but again, like you say, once it's done, it's done. So it's like a couple of hours work and then it's done and you can move on. And with MailShake, it's a couple of hours work getting it set up, but then you've got a template that you can just roll out. So the initial work for these things is a few hours, which still isn't much really. Yeah, when it's done, and then you can just concentrate on leads, cleaning them out, getting them into MailShake, and chatting to prospects. So yeah.
Right. And I think that, and like you said, it's not really much work, but it's also knowing what to do. That's the the next hurdle
Yeah.
to cross over, because a lot of people are like, well, I want to do outbound. I know how to set up email. I can just go get a Gmail account and just start emailing people. It's like,
Yeah.
well, okay, yeah, you can, but if you truly want to be successful, there is a certain route, a path that you need to take.
There is. And one of the biggest things I've learned so like I say, this is about my third iteration of trying outbound and trying different things. So my first round, I was getting open rates of maybe 30-40%. On the good campaigns, some were 20%, some were even lower. And then on my last one, I was getting open rates of like 60 or 70% because of the work I was doing to warm up the email address, to put all the correct records in. So that was a bit of a revelation as, okay, well, you can find all these leads, but if you're going into the spam folder or even the promotions tab, on Gmail, I don't look in my promotions tab very often. I'm sure a lot of people don't. So if you're not hitting the inbox, that lead, you may as well have not had it. So I'm working really hard on the words that I'm using and not having any links in the email, not even having a currency symbol, not icon, just any little things that might be a little red flag that might tip it into the promotions or tip it into spam. Because if you can get, the domains I mentioned there that I sold, they were all open rates of, 70%. So if you can get in the inbox, that's half the battle. And if your domain name's half decent and you've got enough people to message in the first place. So these are the things I'm kind of tweaking at the moment. But that was a huge revelation for me, of just take the time to sort your email address out before you do anything. And, you'll increase your sales just from doing that.
In terms of platforms, like what platforms do you use to list your domains?
I've experimented with Dan and Afternic. So when the new Afternic landers came out, I thought, brilliant, it's branded with GoDaddy, that's great. But I didn't really see a difference in my conversions through sending them to that page. So if I'm not seeing a difference, then I'm going to go to Dan, where if I upload the lead, it's 5%. Whereas Afternic, they're going to take 20 from you no matter what you do. So yeah,
that's a stiff haircut right there.
Yeah, when I've just talked about all the work that you put in to do it, and then someone's like, "Thank you very much, I'll take that payment for 20%." It just didn't seem right. So, I could do it off any platform and do it privately, but again, there's just that's a level of trust that you have to establish with them, and it's another barrier to getting the sale. So. For everyone, I think one went through Afternic just because that's where it was set up, and I'd already told them that, and I didn't want to change it halfway through it would look a bit sketchy. But the others I've just said, okay, I deal with Dan. They're a transaction platform for domains. They have an escrow, and everyone's just kind of gone, okay, yeah, fine, and just gone and done the transaction there.
And it's the same for me. Most of my sales come through Dan. And I had early success with Afternic, but have since gone cold. So, it's just hit or miss. Now, I see there are a bunch of folks that are on Twitter who, day after day, I see Afternic sell. And I'm like, man, okay, maybe this is, and it likely is the case. It's always going to be more about the domain and the quality of domain. But it's just interesting how some people have this knack for Afternic pricing or the types of domains that just often sell on Afternic versus, because some of those same people, they're like, yeah, Dan, that's the worst thing that's ever happened to me. It's like, I can't get a sell on there. And I'm like, well, we're opposites.
Well, it's interesting that you say this because I'm wondering how many of those people actually had their domain pointed to Dan, because my biggest sale to date was an Afternic fast transfer, but the domain was pointed to Dan. So it was obviously, so it was obviously someone, well, I don't know how they found it, maybe through the search path, but so I'm thinking half of the domains that are sold through Afternic maybe aren't even pointed there anyway.
Huh.
I mean, it wasn't in my case. So that makes me wonder about other ones. So
well, and I did experiment at one time to where I would list on Afternic, point to Dan, and there would be like a price discrepancy.
Right.
But then I quickly learned, obviously, like it's cool to start an experiment out like that. But then what always inevitably happens is time catches up to you. And if you don't go back and update the pricing, like you wake up to an excited email of you sold, but then you see the price and you're like, oh,
that's the wrong one. Yeah.
I'm excited, but that was the wrong one.
Okay. Yeah.
So, so I see that, but at the same time, I'm like, man, while you had a sell, it's like, yeah, but how much money did you leave on the table that you could have gotten more? But I'm like, that's always going to be the case.
Yeah.
So your biggest sell then has come through Afternic.
It is. It was one of those beautiful moments where I wake up on a Saturday morning and you've got the email, this domain sold through fast transfer. And it was my first fast transfer one. So there wasn't even any admin. I didn't even have to go and push the domain to anyone, or it was just woke up to the email, it was done, and I just thought, oh, this is the life. This is great.
Well, I think it was like almost like a 100-time return, I think, something like that.
Yeah, it was. I bought it for $25. So it was energized.co was the domain.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I got it on a Dyna.auction for $25. And I knew it wasn't the right sort of, Energize would be the preferred version of that, but I just liked it. And I thought, well, it has a lot of uses, and it could be, a fitness coach or an energy drink or a gym. It just piqued my interest. And I know .co's aren't amazing, but I thought, well, $25. And it was just back in November. So I was just starting to build a bit of a portfolio. So I thought, yeah, I'm going to get that. And then, I had it listed for 2,888, I think it was. And so, 5 months later, in fact, it was listed for lower. I was reminded on Twitter. I think I had it listed for, I don't know, 998 or something like that. And then I heard Nickel on a podcast. I can't remember whose it was, Hypernames. And he was talking about .co's and his one words and how he prices them. And after that, I was really fired up. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to increase my .co prices. So I went on and changed it to 2,888. 5 months later, there we go. Fast transfer sale. So I was on top of the world for days after that.
Yeah, Nickel, man, he is a great resource, talking about a .co expert who graciously shares his data every year of just what he's done, what's worked. I mean, if you want to see a report, it's like the good, the bad, the ugly. Like, he is the person, if you want to learn about .co and just in general, just about domain investing. I mean, he has some insight, some wisdom, definitely can drop nuggets here and there for you that will help shorten that curve, that learning curve. And so, I'm always appreciative to catch up with him, whether on podcast or just in general. So
Yeah.
yeah, definitely hat tip to add hyper names. So
Yeah, he's amazing, and he just puts so much into the community, and he finds it really important to share the full experience, because we're all quick to post that we got a sale, but he's also quick to say, yeah, I did this, but then also this was the final total at the end, and gives you a really realistic perspective of domaining, which I don't think is even still really out there for new domainers. I think they think it can be a quick thing and they can get rich quickly from it. And I think for Nicole to put out that thing of what a slog it is, and how much money you have to invest into it, is
right.
It's really generous of him.
Right. Folks like him that help people like yourself in terms of just getting into the industry, because it can be a money pit if you let it.
Yeah. No, he sets expectations, which is really important, because it's really easy to get swept up into all these tweets you see about Afternic fast transfer for, $10,000 and $2,000. And you think, yeah, I can do that. But yeah, he puts it all in perspective and shows you, like, okay, this is a journey. This is going to take you a few years. And, you need to reinvest your money, and you need to do this. And it grounds you and makes you treat it more like a business, I guess.
Yeah. Now, in regards to Afternic sales, now you've also had some sales that have occurred on DNWE, which is, so for listeners that don't know about DNWE, it's really a platform that's geared towards, I guess you'd say, wholesale liquidation of domains versus retail is going to be more Afternic, more of your Dan sales. And so DWE, like you found success there as well?
Yeah, I've sold 3 or 4 domains on there. If you've just got there's a few domains that I was buying, last November when I got energize.co, I was getting a few others. And then there's some where I'm just kind of like, oh, I don't know if I'd renew that. I don't know if I think I got a bit swept up in buying it. And yeah, I put it on DNWE, and I think a couple sold. I think one sold within 24 hours, one sold within a couple of days. And then one sold, I think, on the 4th time of relisting, because the domains I have on there, they expire after 30 days, then you just relist them. So I just kept doing that. And then, one sold a couple of weeks ago on the 4th time of listing it through there. So, yeah, it's just a great way to liquidate domains that you're not planning on renewing.
And is that something that you do regularly?
Yeah, well, the last few months, yes, because I feel like I've really learned a lot the last few months, and then I can go back to my portfolio and the things I was buying, and really having the mentality of, am I going to renew this? Because back at the end of last year, I just thought, I like that name. It's, it's pretty cheap. It doesn't matter if I don't renew it. I'll just see what happens. And I kind of had that attitude towards it. Whereas now I'm thinking, okay, I'm only going to buy a domain that I am going to renew, rather than I'll get this and see what happens. Unless it's one, Sav run auctions, you can sometimes get a domain for $1 on there. So if I get one of those, I'm happy to just get that and experiment with it and see what happens. But for my main portfolio, I'm trying to look at purchases in the long term, rather than like, I'll see what happens within a year if I try and flip it, and then if not, I'll drop it. Trying to shift my thinking towards long term now.
I see, says the blind man.
Yeah.
And so then in terms of, because one of the things that I think about in geoservice domains and just in domain investing in general, like I've heard folks like Riz, he'll use like a promo code. And I've heard Logan Flatt, even Mark Levine, some of these folks have used promo codes to purchase their domains, and then they don't renew them after a year if they don't sell. Like, is that a strategy that you use? Or
send me some promo codes and I'll try that strategy. Not a problem. No, I've never seen a promo code more than just like valid for the first domain. So yeah, I guess I would be more open to just trying things out if I had some promo code. I guess no, .co. I've had a couple of .co promos where you can hand register for a couple of dollars, that kind of thing rolls around. Right. So I am open to doing that, because it's not going to destroy me if I buy 10 of those to play around with. But yeah, just ultimately thinking long term, but happy to play around with the promo as and when they come up, for sure.
Now, outside of your investing in terms of geoservicedomain.com primarily, and then obviously you've had .co, like, have you been bit by the bug to start investing in other CCTLDs like .ag, .ai, .io, etc.?
Yeah, I've got quite a few .ios. Yeah, I would say I've probably got, 20 or 30 .ios. and I've got a few .sos, maybe about 10, 15 of those. And I did, you're going to laugh, but I did buy some. So, that new domain extension, SBS, and everyone's just like, what is this? Like, it's to be like, it's like a charitable thing or like community. But honestly, they're like $2. So I just thought I'm just going to get a couple of really good one-word keywords from those, because the profits go to charity anyway. So even if you're not going to do anything with them, or you drop them, or they don't sell, at least that $2 is going to a good cause. So yeah, I did get a couple of those. I think last week I got about 20, because like I said, they're like $2 a piece or something like that. So I've got a few of those, but I'm under no illusion that I've stumbled on the next big extension or anything. I just thought, okay, it's for a good cause. I'll get a couple and just see what happens with them for a year. So I haven't even priced them. I've just put them on make an offer, because I wouldn't even know where to price something like that. So we'll see if I ever get an inquiry. You never know. But,
no .vcs?
No .vc, because I missed that promo. I remember there was a big promo on, wasn't there? And I missed the boat on that. So no, I didn't get any VCs, because I think to hand register, it's maybe a bit more than I'd like. It's, I don't know, $30, $40, or
right,
at least 20. It's more than I'm comfortable with. And if you haven't got a killer one word, it's a tricky one to sell. So no, I haven't jumped into that pool.
Now, speaking of one word, now I guess a few months ago you put out like a list, I think, of like some oneword.coms with their GoDaddy, I guess, estimated value associated with it.
So again, I was just playing around with some software, and I got like a dictionary list and combined it with a .com, ran it through some software, and it spat out all these names that were available, one words. But yeah, there was some strange...
so those were available then?
Yeah, they're all available to hand register.
Yeah. Wow. So I didn't realize. Okay.
But it was, crazy medical terms, and, technically, yes, it's a oneword.com, but yeah. And I thought, well, you know what, I'll put this out here, because maybe there's something within here that a couple of people find useful. And I did get some DMs from people saying, thanks, I've registered this, that, and the other. I was like, okay, great, brilliant.
Man. And this is a pretty comprehensive list.
Yeah, it was huge.
I was like, huge. Let me see. Let's see if I can get down.
I'm just trying to scroll to it as well. April.
What is this? Like 4,000 some odd names, I think.
I think so. Yeah, I found the tweet. So in the tweet, I've put, in playing around with some data, I've compiled a list of 4,000 available dictionary domains along with their GoDaddy appraisal. These are mostly words you only read in a dissertation, but there may be the odd gem if you work within certain niches. And I think there was the odd gem for certain people. I mean, I don't think I even fully went through the whole 4,000, because, who's got time for that? But some people saw a couple that they wanted and went for it. So, yeah, that's just another one of those things, when you're new to the community, you don't always have a lot to offer. So I thought, well, I found this. I'm not going to register any of these, so I may as well put them out there, see if anyone else wants any.
It is amazing to me, because I don't know that you realize how unique your uniqueness is to the industry, if you will. For you, it's like, oh, I was just putting out this data. It's no big deal. We'll go grab lunch. Versus for some people, they're like, oh my gosh, I would have never thought to do that. I would have not known the first place to begin to even do it. And the fact that you're doing it, posting it, that is your superpower. And you just have a knack for doing that, which is awesome.
Yeah, well, if you're not going to, there's a few things that I hoard, don't get me wrong. There's some things I keep close to my chest, but if I know it's something I'm not going to use, then yeah, put it out there, share it with the world.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like the thing that you may not find value in, you bring value to others.
Yeah, one man's trash is another man's treasure, or something like that.
Yeah, because if you think about it, it's like, if you look and say, okay, out of the 4,000 names that are listed on this list of this available dictionary, one word list, or however you want to define it, if you were to go through the list and likely choose a few names, let's say, hey, you're probably not as successful, but you put the list out, someone registered a name, and then they flipped it in like a week.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. Yeah.
And, and who knows, it's probably happened, because, hey, the domain investing industry in general tends to be secretive, because when people figure out something works, oftentimes they'll stay the course until they've made what they've made, and then come out and say, okay, well, I did this 3 years ago.
Yeah. I can understand that as well. If you're working a certain niche, or
Right.
You're not going to want to reveal it to the world and then you cut yourself off. So I can understand people not wanting to share certain things as well. Definitely.
Yep. And then there are folks like yourself who, have been gracious enough to share the Dan data or highlight it for us, as well as, just even these little odd and ends of like the available dictionary Google spreadsheet that you put together. I mean, it's those things that make the industry that much better.
You want to see what I don't share, Alvin?
Like, well, about that.
Yeah.
No,
so start getting DMs from Alvin like, tell me more.
It's like, hey, about those other things that you're doing. No, I think it's great. Like, so tell me this, like, what has it been like to enter into the domain industry? Has it been hard for you? Have you been well received? Like, what's that experience been like?
Yeah, well received. It's first thing I did when I thought, okay, let's see what this domaining's about. And I think it might have been, it was just after I sold christmaswrap.com, and that sold. And I thought, okay, there's something in this. So then I went to Twitter, I made an account and just started looking for domain people and following that. And then through that, I could see that there was some really nice people, really generous people. And I thought, oh yeah, this is a community I want to be part of. So then I just started interacting with people, and then the Dan Stats thing came along really quite soon, I think. I think up to then I was just tweeting things like, I tried this thing and it didn't work, or I tried this and it worked, just trying to document my experience a little bit, really, just to keep me accountable and motivated. But yeah, everyone's been great. It's such a nice bunch of people, and I really love the community. I'm really happy. It just spurs me on even more to do this full time, because it's quite a solitary thing, isn't it, domaining? So if you can have a community to share your wins and losses with and get support from and ask questions, I love it. It's great.
Now, I know that you've had success with geo-service domains. So is that a niche? We all have niche. There's some that are, brandable domain investors only. There are some that are one word. There are some that are like Nico that are, .code specialists or experts. And so, like, do you find yourself likely leaning towards a certain type of domain investing, or, like, what's on the horizon for Leanne?
That's a good question. And I'm a little bit undecided. So the geo domain thing, the outbound thing, is definitely a for now thing. I'm going to find something that consistently works, and then we're going to scale it, and then that will give me plenty of funds for a portfolio. But I don't see it long term, because it is hard work, and I can't see me doing that year after year after year. So I think the ideal goal would be to make enough money from that I have a portfolio that's 1,000, 2,000, and then the idea from that is that you then get enough passive sales to pay for all your renewals and make a profit. So that's the long-term goal. And between now and then, I can't really say. I'm always trying different things, just trying to make a steady income to build a portfolio. So I'm not entirely sure what the future holds, but for the foreseeable, it will be geo outbound and perfecting that and reinvesting the funds from that.
That is awesome. And so, because I think sometimes that we can dabble in so much that we don't necessarily stumble upon, I guess you'd say, our thing. And so we figure out what our thing is and stick to that. And while you can go and do other things, it's like, no, like, this is my lane to run in, and this is what I do and do well. Figure that out early, and then just stay the course. And so, so the one question that came to mind, though, was, because I know that you mentioned about growing your portfolio to like 1,000, 2,000. So how big is your portfolio today?
It's about 400 today. So it's getting there. But, within there, like I say, there's those 20 SBSs, and there's a few .co's that I'm going to be dropping, maybe about 20 of those that are like 2-word .co's, which I don't know if there's really any legs in that. So there's a few geos that I've outbounded that haven't sold. So maybe 20 of those. So I guess my long-term portfolio is probably sitting at around 300. And then I'm just trying to buy a domain or two every day through Handredge or closeouts or just something like that. But then as I build the outbound and get the money from that, I do plan on trying to learn a bit more and build my confidence to the point where I feel like I could buy some 3-figure names which I know is quite still quite tentative, but I haven't ventured that far yet. As soon as auctions get to the high double figures, I kind of chicken out. So I guess it's having the confidence to see, well, these people are bidding against you because they see value in the domain as well. But I don't know, at the moment, buying a domain for 3 figures with an idea that I'm just going to sit on it for 2 years, that's unthinkable at the moment. So I guess I need to build my cash reserves so that $100 becomes the equivalent of my current $10.
Well, that was going to be the next question of how, do you see yourself leveling up into that four figure range? She's like,
let's try 3 first.
She's like, and the interview just ended.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, well, and I get it, because, you don't necessarily know who you're bidding against on the other side. And the reality is, when you start, the higher you go in terms of your investment, oftentimes the longer the hold.
Right. Okay.
And so it's like, do you see yourself really getting into that lane? And I guess at least right now, the answer is no, that, probably even getting into that 3-figure land of making that type of investment, you're like, yeah, I'm going to probably need a bit more data to prove out that's the responsible thing to do.
Yeah, and by nature, I'm very risk averse. So I would only.
No, I could not.
That hasn't come across. No. Oh no, I am, Alvin. I am. So yeah, like the idea now of thinking of me buying a 4-figure domain to hold is just unthinkable. But I know that is the path that's the end of the path that I want to be on. But I have a lot to overcome in terms of knowledge and confidence and just like cash reserves, really, of just being able to be like, yeah, there we go. I'm just going to throw 2 months mortgage at this domain and sit on it for 5 years. I mean, yeah, at the moment, I definitely, I'm nowhere near that, but it is my future. I just need to learn enough to get there.
Well, I commend you, because for a lot of people, they would throw caution to the wind and jump in without a plan. And one thing that I can certainly say, just in our time and knowing one another, is, you're dedicated to the process. You're dedicated. You're not after just hitting a home run or a grand slam. That's not, yeah, that'd be nice to do. But for you, it's really learning the fundamentals, and then, using a sports analogy there, and especially baseball analogy, is really you're focused on hitting the singles with the geo service, then work your way into a double and triple. The home runs will come in time, but like you said, it's really learning the fundamentals, and you're allowing one thing that I think domain investors oftentimes don't do, the most successful ones do, is to use data to help you make informed decisions.
My approach is definitely going to be a slower one than some people who maybe just jump in a bit, but hopefully it will, slow and steady wins the race, that old analogy.
Right.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah. And I think you're proving that out, because like I said, as you're providing the industry with stats around what's going on and what transactions are happening at Dan, I mean, that's just a sliver of what's going on in the entire industry, but it's an important sliver because many people use the Dan platform. But at the same time, I also look at that and I'm like, man, I can't imagine how that's just informing your decisions, just innately through time, of how you're sharpening and leveling up as a domain investor, just seeing the stats and reporting on those stats, and then in turn, using it to bolster your portfolio.
Yeah, and I think for everyone, just seeing that every day. I mean, obviously it's not happening at the moment, but in the very near future, there'll be Dan 2.0 and there'll be sort of new and improved stats for me to put out there. But I think everyone just seeing it every day, it just sort of subconsciously sinks in, and you just kind of start getting a bit more intuition towards what's a good domain and what isn't. So I'm really looking forward to doing them again, to be honest. And yeah, I can't wait. And it's imminent, and it'll be Stats 2.0. So yeah, it's going to be really interesting. More information than before. So it's going to be, can't wait.
Hey, I would not be surprised, if 6 months, a year from now, we're back on the show and we're talking. It would not surprise me if you had some sort of service offering around stats. Yeah. Would not surprise me one bit. In addition to what you're doing in terms of your own domain sales and own domain investing, it would not surprise me at all if there were something around that area of stats, because it's definitely needed. And I think it would help to, the curb that learning curve for a lot of domain investors, both old and new.
Yeah. No, it's really interesting, isn't it? Yeah, I guess we'll see with Down 2.0 and the information that they give for that and what comes of it. Yeah, we'll see what happens, how maybe we can dive deeper into them, or I don't know, lots of thinking to be done, but it's going to be really interesting and exciting, and it's soon. It's soon, so the wait will soon be over.
She's like, I'll keep you in suspense until then.
It's just when Dan 2.0 launches, but I know there was a tweet a few days ago that said it was going to be in a few days. So yeah, as soon as that happens, it'll be full steam ahead.
Well, good deal. Well, wrapping up, and last but not least, I guess, is there anything else that you'd like to share with listeners? If somebody says, hey, I want to get in contact with Leanne, like, how might they do so?
I'd just say head over to Twitter. I'm on there at Leanne Mac. Just drop me a DM. My DMs are open, or get involved in a conversation that's going on there. And yeah, I think that's the best place for now. Well, I'll have a website for the Dan stats, I think, at some point, but I'm not sure what domain that will be on, and not sure what form that will take. But there's definitely going to be too much information for a tweet, so that needs to needs to go onto a blog or something like that. So just keep an eye on Twitter, and I'll post on there when it has a home.
Awesome. And with that, we're out of time. So Leanne, thank you again for joining us today and sharing your domain investing journey.
Thank you, Alvin. I tell you, my heart rate at the start of the podcast was in exercise mode, and now I'm back down to normal. So it's been really enjoyable.
I tell everybody that comes on the podcast and says something like that, I'm like, and you're welcome for your cardio today.
Yeah. It was like 111 at the start. So I was like, okay. Don't need to go for a walk today then.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Leanne, and thank you, listeners, for tuning in to Kickstart Commerce, where we share search marketing and domain name strategies to help grow your business. Please subscribe to this podcast via iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, or Podbean. Last but not least, please visit kickstartcommerce.com to subscribe to the newsletter sharing tips and tricks about the disciplines of digital strategy. Thanks, and that's all for now.